The Sharp Edge on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Maizex Seeds.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin. Welcome to another episode of The Sharp Edge. Today I'm down in Tilbury, Ontario at the Maizex corn breeding nursery, catching up with Maizex agronomist Adam Parker. Adam, how's it going?
Good, Bern.
Hey, I want to talk about corn breeding here, and specifically, the advancements we've seen in the last 20 years. I mean, we're ticking along at a rate of increase of about 2.5 bushels per year, per acre per year. And our guest today is Maizex corn breeder Shawn Winter. Now, why is Shawn on the Sharp Edge?
So Shawn's one of those guys that's really trying to push the envelope forward. We're really trying to develop hybrids that can move north and really get a shorter maturity while still maintaining yield and productivity for our producers.
Yeah, so we got about 6 million acres of corn in Canada. We could probably push it.
Yeah, so if you look coast to coast, which is what the Maizex business covers, you can cover about 4,000 acres between the Maritimes and BC. And for every kilometre north that you can move corn, that's about another 1 million acres of corn opportunity. So if we're only at 6 million acres now, there's a lot of room to move north.
Yeah, and hey, let's hear how Shawn Winter is hoping to move us north.
Hey Shawn, we're at the nursery here in Tilbury. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you got going on here this year?
Sure. So we have 7 acres here of nursery. We are developing early inbreds to be used in hybrid combinations, 75 days and less is a goal.
And how many specific pedigrees do you have in this field here today?
Sure. So there's thousands of rows in here. The process is a little bit more complicated, but it's all a logistics scenario. We start by making the first cross between 2 related inbreds to make an inbred population, and then send that to winter nursery to get populations back, and then planting those populations out the next season here in Ontario for selection of inbreds per se.
And what's your primary focus in this program?
So our primary focus is 75 days and earlier. We just came back from Manitoba, and right now their concern is corn going to make it this season? It will make it, but primarily we select for flowering date, because flowering date is highly correlated to maturity. And then once we select for flowering date, we put the selections in hybrid combinations for testing for yield and other traits in Manitoba.
And are we looking at grain corn, silage corn? What's the market opportunity?
So in 2018, we purchased equipment to run our own trials in Western Canada. It started with 4 locations of grain, replicated data, replicated locations, and then in 2020 we built a silage harvester. So we have capacity to do silage testing in Western Canada as well. So 1/3 of our testing out there is silage, and probably 2/3 is grain.
Can you tell us about the process that you're going through in order to make an inbred and then make a hybrid, and what that looks like to make it a commercial viable product at the end of the day?
So there's 2 streams. Either you can use double haploids, which are a little bit quicker, or the conventional breeding program. We can use both. The conventional program, it takes probably 7 or 8 years to develop an inbred. Double haploids is a little bit quicker than that, probably 6 years. And then you have hybrid testing after that. So 6 to 8 years to develop an inbred, and then a few more years to develop a hybrid after that.
So give or take 10 years from now, something in this field that you're working on today could become commercially viable in some farmers' field in Canada.
Yeah, so we have a slew of students in here, and we tell them that 99.9% of what they do is going to be thrown out eventually in 10 years, right? So you kind of tell them that the last few days, not the first few days, and but for sure, most of it gets thrown out.
So you talked about desirable traits. Do you do any yield evaluations here, or is this strictly all pre-commercial, well before any of that type of work?
Most of our material is concentrated on the male side of the pedigree, so we're not concerned with female seed yield. Often the ugliest hybrid or ugliest inbreds make the best hybrid. So we test ultimately in the maturity we're trying to target. So Western Canada is where we do all our hybrid testing.
And what is that, what maturity, what CHU or RM maturity would you be targeting?
So we are targeting 75 days and less, 78 days and less. In our tour last week, there is some 68, 67 day material in there as hybrids. It'll be a few years before growers will be able to plant that, but it is coming quickly.
And where do you see that process going 10 years from now? Is that going to be earlier than 67 days?
When we started, we always plant the commercial check, the earliest inbred that we can get our hands on alongside of our populations. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we had 50 pollinations when that early inbred was flowering. The next year we had 200. The next year after that we had a few thousand, and now everything is flowering before that industry leader for earliness is flowering. So we're gaining momentum quickly. It'll change quickly the maturity of hybrids.
So you've been in this industry for over 20 years, Shawn. Do you want to give us a bit of a synopsis of where we came from and where you think you're going and what that looks like for Canada?
Sure. When I started traits, corn traits were just being introduced. We had conventional corn for the early market because you couldn't get Roundup Ready corn or traits in that maturity. Traits have made a big advancement into early material. We're still waiting for some traits to get integrated in that material. When we started, it was common to have hybrids that were 14, 12 kernel rows round. Now we have 75-day corn with 20, 22 kernel rows round. We're gaining in disease tolerance as well. Gauss's wilt tolerance has made it into that maturity. Things have changed drastically. Well, in the high yield challenge in Manitoba, growers are getting 200 plus bushels per acre on a field of corn. That was unheard of 20 years ago.
So Shawn, final question, as you look north and into the future, what do you see as a yield potential for some of this early material?
Sure. So you're going to see hybrids with that are bigger in stature. Right now those early hybrids are narrow leafed and kind of short. You're going to see larger statured hybrids. You're going to see hybrids with more kernel rows round and deeper kernels. You're also going to see those hybrids have reduced content of flint in their background, meaning softer kernel textures that are more digestible for animals. And you're going to see higher yields when you get those put into combination.
So there you have it. Now, Adam, watching your conversation with Shawn, I'm amazed by, the work, the logistics it takes to develop a new corn hybrid.
Yeah, between keeping track of inbreds, cross-pollinations, flowering dates, and then, trying to track that across 10 years to commercialize a product, there's a lot of time investment and blood, sweat, and tears that goes into this nursery.
And the other thing, Shawn also talked about, the advances he's made, in the last 3 or 4 years, and maturity, and pushing things north. You got to think at this pace, we're going to see a lot more corn north, and Shawn's going to play a role.
Yeah, at the end of the day, our goal is to produce high-yielding products and try to develop a market where we can have good agronomics and maybe find some new areas where we can grow corn and be sustainable for the producers in Canada and ultimately give them higher yield corn and higher productivity.
Awesome. Well, hey, another great episode of The Sharp Edge. Thanks for the invite to the nursery. We'll see you a little later in the season.
Thanks, Brian.